Today, we're going to be talking about resumes. You hear a lot of different advice. So everything I give you today, I want you to take kind of looking for patterns amongst what I'm saying and also what other people tell you, because there is an art to resumes that is a bit subjective. But what I want to focus on today is maybe that next level that you've not necessarily heard yet. So how much time should you be spending on your resume? Well, I hate to tell you this, but you should be spending time on your resume every couple months, every 3 months, pretty much till you stop working. It's a living document that consistently needs to be updated. And right now, it's the most important piece of paper in your life. So see this gorgeous face of this lady beside us. The people looking at her resume is never going to see it unless she gets an interview. So that piece of paper is critical. So please do not underestimate how much time you should be spending on your resume, considering most people will never see your face if you don't at least get past the interview round. Now, what I did was I looked on Google to figure out what are the biggest resume complaints. So even though we're providing you with different advice, what are the things that employers are still saying is happening that they wish was not? And we're going to talk about a few of those things today. You basic, you lazy, you fluffy, and you ugly. And we're going to talk a little bit about each one of those. So let's start with you basic. So, and that's a good place reference for anybody who watches that show, but your resume sounds just like everybody else's. So it's not that your resume is bad, but it is so generic that it's hard for us to really see a difference between you and Sally and Bob and Sue and Joe. So how do you fix this? The biggest thing you can do is look at your resume and ask yourself, am I being too generic? Instead of saying things like, I managed interns, you need to add details and numbers. So for example, I managed a team of 4 design interns to deliver 7 client projects over the course of the fall 23 semester. Now, another thing to think about is look at your bullets and ask yourself, are there a couple there that talk about what I did? So the activities that I did. And then secondly, the outcome. What was actually the thing that came out of that? So you need to do 2 or so bullets on what I did and a couple bullets on the outcome of the things you did. Now, a pro tip is the reader should actually be able to look at your resume and imagine a day in the life of yours for each section. So let's say that you are the president of some student organization. They need to be able to read those bullets and really understand what did a day in the life look like in that organization. Now, you're lazy. So most of us in this class are in marketing. And what we know is mass marketing or sending out the exact same message to every single customer does not work. So why are you doing it on your resume? How to fix this? The first thing I would do is think about what are 3 jobs that you hope to apply for. And within those 3 jobs, you should have 3 different resumes. Now, clearly, it doesn't mean you lie on those 3 different resumes. It means you emphasize different things. So for example, let's say that you were interested in a potential sales job, maybe a social media marketing job, and maybe an HR job. What you need to do is emphasize different things on your resume to really cater to those content areas. So for your sales job, you're going to emphasize SIP more by providing more bullets, giving a little bit more insight. For the social media job, you're going to really emphasize cadency in the classes that you took regarding social media. The next thing I would suggest you do is customize further for your top 20 jobs. So let's say that, ultimately, statistics say you're going to have to apply to 100 to 200 jobs just to get a job in the long run. So with that being said, I understand you can't customize for every single job. However, those top 20 jobs that you're super excited about, print off or download the postings for those jobs and actually mimic the language that they use within their document. So for example, if they say we're looking for an innovative thinker, then include that language and provide proof of that in one of your bullets. Now, you fluffy. What do I mean by fluffy? What I mean is when I read your resume, you're using too many adjectives and language that either means nothing to me or is confusing. So for example, if I say I'm hardworking, That's just what I'm suggesting about myself. But instead, why not say something like, I work 30 hours a week, take 17 credit hours, and maintain a 3.8 GPA. That is proof that you're hardworking. You're not making any claims. So take it easy on those adjectives and instead really try to prove it with actual evidence, such as instead of good at marketing research, show your skills of marketing research by showing that you know how to use MTurk, Qualtrics, you know how to do interviewing, focus groups, etc. So in other words, the pro tip is don't make claims about your personality. Instead, just provide proof of that personality trait in those bullet points. You're confusing. So remember that we live in a bubble, right? So we know what IPTAY means. We know what SIP means. But when you move outside of Clemson, a lot of folks are not really going to know what those things mean. So what you want to be able to do is create a document that no one should ever have to go Google when they're looking at it. So use names and acronyms in a way that is very clear what those are. So for example, spell out acronyms. Don't say SIP, say the Clemson Sales Innovation Program. Another way that I think really clarifies things and helps people see a day in the life of you is to provide a one-line description of your companies or organizations. Because even things like sororities, fraternities, student orgs, a lot of times people don't know what those are. So for example, if you see on the Clemson Sales Innovation Program label, I added a competitive collegiate sales program that focuses on professional development, sales skills, sales training via sales curriculum, corporate partner events, sales role play competitions, etc. So now it is very clear not only what SIP means because we spelled it out, but also now with that one sentence, I have a context for what the heck you're talking about when you say you're the president of that or a leader of that. So a pro tip, your friends, your parents, your grandparents should be able to look at your resume and never be confused or ask any clarifying questions. They should be able to understand what each of the orgs that you work with are about. There should be no acronyms that confuse them, etc. Yeah, ugly. Now, a lot of times we have a hard time really seeing, some of us have a hard time seeing, what do you mean by ugly? Well, here's a few different things you need to be thinking about. First of all, just use a template. Do not try to reinvent the wheel. I have yet to see someone try to reinvent the wheel and it looks better. I will post some templates on Canvas also, and just look at some of those and try to use some of those. Also pick fonts that are familiar. I know a lot of times they're trying to be unique, but for a resume, where you really want to stand out is the content, not the way it looks. Because you're going to get that one person who hates that font or that one person that hates that color. So play it safe, use a template, and stand out with content, not with anything else. You should be able to visually just look at the document. This is your pro tip, regardless of content, and say, yeah, that's pretty pleasing to the eye. It's not hard to follow. It doesn't look jammed up. There's not weird colors. There's not weird font. So how do you use your resume? So first of all, as I said, you should be updating it every 3 months. I would also always share it in PDF form, because a lot of times when we share it in Word doc, it actually shifts or the conversion doesn't look right. So you want to make sure that you're always saving as in PDF form. When you go into interviews, make sure that you take at least 5 copies of your resume with you. There are people that intentionally do not bring a copy so that they can trip you up and see if you're prepared. You could also, whenever you do exploratory interviews or you're meeting with someone just to kind of get a vibe for a company, you can always attach it to those introduction emails, a little bit about yourself. You would love to set up a 10-minute meeting just to learn a little bit more about the company, and you attached your resume just as a starting off point so they could learn a little bit about you. Clearly post it on LinkedIn. There are recruiters looking all the time on LinkedIn for your resume. Last, and this is kind of next level, but if you've not heard of a Visime, you could always create a video version of your resume. And what I mean by that is ultimately you are sharing kind of highlights of your resume on a video. You share that on LinkedIn and then include your resume. So there's a few different ways to think about using your resume that's maybe you haven't thought about before or a little bit different than what you've been taught. If you need more help after you've watched this and after you've made the edits to your resume, I'm happy to do that. Just reach out. Hopefully this was helpful, And as I said, if you ever need anything, just let me know. Thank you.